Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. This is not a landscape photography video. I thought I'd do something a little bit different for this one and show you a bit of the culture in this part of Spain. So I'm going to share with you some of the big parade for the Moors and Cristianos Fiesta that's taking place tonight. So this parade lasts for about 3 hours, so obviously I'm not going to video all of it. I'll try and get some highlights, and I'm going to grab some stills as well. I'm going to be shooting both video and stills on the Canon M50 with the 15-45 lens, and I hope you'll enjoy the video. And if you don't, sorry, but I'll try and get back to normal for the next one. Okay, so we're just up in the town centre now. Just going to try and find ourselves a nice seat to stake out for the evening. €5 a seat for a 3-hour parade isn't bad, I think. Okay guys, that's it. The end of the parade, and we're now heading home. As far as photographs are concerned, I was having to shoot at really high ISOs just to try and freeze the action, ISO 3200 and above, 6400 in some cases. So I'm really not sure how the images are going to come out. So what about the actual photography? So this is completely different to the normal style of photography that I do. Landscapes are all about patience, taking your time, waiting for the light, being careful about setting the composition up. Whereas in this one, I was obviously reacting to what was going on. I had limited control over the composition because I couldn't move very far, and obviously the subjects were moving around all over the place. It was a low light situation. And I was having to shoot at high ISOs, and even then I was struggling to get a shutter speed fast enough to be able to freeze the movement. Obviously I was also flipping backwards and forwards between video and stills, and I was shooting on the Canon M50, which I don't normally use as a stills camera, so I was kind of fumbling a bit to get my settings right. So I did take quite a few shots, and to be honest, a lot of them were rubbish. And I knew they were going to be rubbish before I started, because there was a lot of spraying and praying going on to just try and capture some images. But I thought what I'd do is I'd share with you 8 images from that evening, taken over a 3-hour period. And 4 of those images are what I would consider to be probably near misses. They kind of almost work, but I don't think they really do. And then there's 4 images that I've taken that I think do work for very, very different reasons. And I thought it might be interesting just to have a look through and see what they are. Okay, so this is the first image that is kind of a near miss. I took several shots here. What I was really hoping to get was one image where they were all looking in the same direction, either looking roughly in the direction of the camera or all looking straight ahead. Either would have worked for me. This was the closest I managed to get. I've just done some basic processing on this image just to sort of see if it works, but I don't think it's worth doing any more to it. It's a near miss. It could have worked if I'd managed to get them all looking in the same direction. Okay, this image could have worked. It's got some beautifully ornate sort of armour costumes. But the problem was it was shot at ISO 6400, and even then it was only about 1/60th of a second. So it's not really as sharp as I think it would absolutely need to be for this type of image to really show off that detail. In particular, they've got these kind of plumes coming off of the helmets, and they just don't look very nice on anything other than a very small view. So again, it could have worked, but it's a near miss. This one I really wanted to work. I really wanted to capture that beautiful coloured sort of, I don't know, butterfly, I don't really know what it was, but this swirling costume with all the beautiful colours on it. But even bumping the ISO all the way up and accepting the noise and grain that I was going to get with that, I just couldn't get a fast enough shutter speed to freeze it, and trying to do a shot with it blurred in motion just didn't look right either. I did do some playing around with this one to see if I could salvage it, dodging and burning, basically darkening the background and brightening the main subject so that she stood out a lot more. But again, it's a near miss. It just doesn't quite work. And the same thing really applies to this one. Again, I really wanted it to work. I love the position that the dancers got with the tambourine held up and the way that's reflected in the shadow on this giant tambourine in the background. But again, I couldn't get a fast enough shutter speed, and with the high ISO, the combination of the movement blur, particularly in the dancer's arm, and the grain that appears in the darker parts of the scene, it just doesn't work. It's a near miss, and it's okay just as a quick snapshot, but I wouldn't do anything else with it. Okay, so what about ones that did work? Well, let's start off with this one. And this one I actually didn't take during the parade. I took it right at the end as we were leaving. I walked up to the end of the street and just took a shot of the lights that they've got basically across the top of the street. And when I got it back into post-processing, I'd already got a pretty good idea what I was going to do. I just basically dropped the background into darkness. I used the contrast tool, in fact I used a curves tool to drop the background into darkness, and then just made sure that my crop, which is a square crop, was symmetrical. And I think it actually works as kind of an abstract thing. You can't actually tell what it is, but I just quite like the effect. So it works. It's not one of my favourite images, but it works. Now, this image. This wasn't what I had in mind when I shot this image. In fact, I actually shot a much larger scene with 2 camels in and a rider on the top, and it just didn't work. I'd got some motion blur in there because I couldn't get the shutter speed fast enough. It was too grainy and soft because of the high ISO. But when I looked at this in post-processing before, I was almost going to delete it, and then when I looked at it, I just noticed the position of the camel's head in relation to the guy in the costume who was leading it, the way his head was kind of tilted to one side a little bit, and the expression on his face, and I knew I had to try and do something with it. So I cropped it in, and again I did a lot of work with contrast and some dodging and burning to drop the background away and just bring the 2 subjects into sharp relief, if you like. Now, this was a high ISO shot. It was ISO 4000, so there's some grain in there. I've used some noise reduction, and I've tried to get a good balance between reducing the grain and leaving the detail in, and I think I've got the balance about right for this kind of shot. You wouldn't want this as a big print. If you printed this really large, it wouldn't look very nice, but you could easily have this as a 12-inch by 12-inch print, or possibly even a 16-inch by 16-inch print, and it would look pretty nice. And I just love the feel of this one. It I don't know, it amuses me. Okay, this shot, I tried loads of times to get a shot of this beautiful white horse with the costumed rider on, and the problem was the horse was in constant motion, and I couldn't get a fast enough shutter speed. I did eventually manage to get this one shot when the horse kind of paused, and it was just about possible. I took about 4 or 5 shots of this, and this was the only one that was sharp enough. Now again, this was a high ISO shot, ISO 3200, and I'm actually quite impressed with the way the Canon M50 has handled that high ISO. I've done some work on this, I've cropped it in a bit. Again, I just couldn't get the composition the way I wanted it because everything was moving too fast. And I've done some work with contrast and dodging and burning to, again, drop the background away and just make the horse and the rider stand out more. And again, there's a bit of grain and noise in here, a little tiny bit of softness because of the high ISO, but you could easily get a 16-inch wide print out of this and it would look absolutely fine. So I'm quite pleased with this one. And this is the final image, and I really like this image. I took several shots of this lady in this beautiful costume as she was moving around, and I was actually hoping she was going to look straight at the camera, and in fact I did get one shot where she was looking straight at the camera, but when I started to do the post-processing I just preferred this one where she's looking off to one side a bit. I loved the way she's positioned with her hand out like that. But the thing that really made this image for me, and I didn't notice it at the time, I have to confess, is the little dog down there peeking out from under the curtain, and it just really appealed to me. Again, fair bit of work on contrast and dodging and burning to drop the background away and bring the main subjects out. Again, high ISO shot. This one was 6400. So it's got a little bit of grain in the details, but actually not as bad as I expected, and I reckon you could get a 20-inch high print out of this, or an 18-inch high print out of this, and it would look pretty nice. So I'm pretty pleased with this one. In fact, this one might even make it to my portfolio. It's not all about the technical quality, it's not all about that perfect sharpness. I just love the feel of this image and the little story that it tells. It amuses me. Anyway, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, and you're not already a subscriber, and you've maybe checked out some of my other work and you're interested in landscape photography, that kind of thing, then please consider hitting subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, then of course, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. If you have enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like or sharing it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you like. That'd be much appreciated. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think about this. This was something very different, but maybe you enjoyed it, maybe you didn't, maybe you'd prefer I stuck to the landscapes. And as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much. And until the next video, bye.